It's alive! It's alive!
It's a live stream.
It's a live stream indeed. Howdy, folks. I'm Brian.
I'm Amber.
And here's some live Reddit that's happening right now as we speak. As I speak. Probably you're not speaking because it would be a little different. I'm kind of speaking to a microphone, but I don't know.
The live event is beginning in 00 minutes, my phone says.
Oh no, the live event hasn't started?
No.
Why is that?
It looks like we're glitching.
Oh no, we shouldn't be glitching. We'll wait for it to actually start. Oh, and there's Army.
Maybe it's going. Yes, now it's going.
Hi! Welcome to the live stream. Let me know if you can hear me. Because if you can't, then that would be bad. Yes, they can hear us.
Excellent.
Well, we'll have to get started. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad or anything like that. I was having a little bit of like weirdness with my audio basically being like super duper loud. So hopefully that's resolved. Welcome, Army Soldier Lady. We're happy to have you here. We've got a great lineup of stories today. So I guess we're probably going to jump straight into it. I was expecting a couple more people, but we'll see if they end up joining here. Oh, good. I'm glad I sound good. We'll have an audience of at least one. Let's get started.
So there's 4 people in here now.
Oh, there's 4 people. Oh, ho, ho, ho. That makes you and me and someone else. And Army Soldier Lady. All right, let's get started. All right, folks. And our first outrageous letter is titled, I'm a 27-year-old male, and I want to break up with my girlfriend, a 28-year-old female, but she paid for my school. What's the best way to break up? Let me know what your theories are on the best way to break up are, folks. I have been with my girlfriend for 3 years now. I was struggling because I went to school and got a fashion degree. I was struggling for years after school. Well, 4 years ago, I met my girlfriend and we were on and off. I just wasn't ready to commit to her. I eventually decided to commit to her. Now, I should say that my girlfriend makes close to $200,000 a year and I wanted to go back to school. My girlfriend is the sweetest person ever, and she started paying for my school, and I will get my degree in computer science soon. I already have a couple of job offers lined up, and the lowest one is in the 90s. Well, I've been reflecting, and I really want an opportunity to be a single guy making money. I really appreciate what my girlfriend has done, but I'm not the most attracted to her, and I'm not in love with her. As I reflected, I don't think that I would have dated her if I wasn't in a bad situation financially. I feel extremely guilty, but at the same time, I know that I shouldn't let that stop me from leaving a relationship that I'm growing unhappy in. How do I go about this? I have a friend who says that I can stay with them until I finish the semester. All right, folks, what do you think? What's the best way to break up?
With a repayment plan.
With a repayment plan? Yeah.
Like, I know this isn't an Am I the Jerk post, but OP, what he did is really cruel. Like, it's very clear that he's using this woman for her money.
Yeah.
And that was his intention all along. And now that he can actually make money, he just wants to kick her to the curb. So, I mean, I think the most important thing is to pay her back for what she invested in OP.
Yeah.
She thought she had a partnership. And she didn't. She just had someone who was using her for her money.
Oh, hi, Mary. Mary joined us.
Hi, Mary.
I agree on that. Mary, we're talking about a guy who's dated somebody basically to use them for their money. And she just didn't know that they were using them like this. And so
yeah, so now that she's paid off his school, he wants to dump her, and he's asking, what's the best way to do this?
So I honestly, some relationships are purely monetary based, right? Like there are some people who have like a, sugar baby type relationship where the expectation is that you are funding somebody and they are there with you because of the money. And if there is the understanding ahead of time in the relationship that this is a purely transactional relationship, then that's between those two people, right? They can decide if that's really what they want or not. In this particular case, it doesn't sound like the girlfriend was aware that this was a purely transactional relationship.
Yeah, no, and that's where it gets manipulative. When you're
Mm-hmm.
using someone else for your own gain, that's manipulation.
Yeah. If you would realize, like, the way he talks about this is like, oh, if I only was, it was with her because I was desperate. That's not cool. And now that you are going to go and make at least $90,000 a year, I would say, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I'm making $90,000 a year. I don't need her anymore. I can be on my own. It just is really cruel. I mean, you should break up with her, but not
Right.
because you are, not because of but because of her. She doesn't deserve to have a lousy partner like you who's going to
Mm-hmm.
use her and take advantage of her. And I definitely think that if OP is aware that they use this individual, that they should pay them back for the schooling. But that's just my take here. But let me know what you folks think. I mean, Army Soldier Lady, she says, I agree with Amber. And Mary says, wow, a situation I have never been in on either side. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a rare situation in a lot of ways, right?
Well, that's the thing is like there are a lot of ways to get money in when you're in a rough situation, and most people don't necessarily go running straight for I'm gonna date this lady who's making $200,000 a year so she can finance me.
Mm-hmm. Now it would be different if like OP had been happy in the relationship at the beginning of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they were actually in love with this person,
Well, yeah,
and
of course. Sometimes relationships just don't work out. And it doesn't mean that everything that was done in the relationship is now owed back or that everything was
mm-hmm.
wrong or anything. It's just a bad situation. But if their OP just went into this like, I just want to be financed,
Yeah.
then like that's
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Really, you should be invested in somebody and invested in the relationship and not just there for the money. That's at least my opinion.
mm-hmm.
And if you are there for the money, then at least let the other person know that. Yeah, well, the sooner that he leaves, the sooner the girlfriend can find a real person. Agreed. But it's just unfortunate that he wasted so much of her time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
Reparations for her.
Yes.
All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I the jerk for not telling my wife that I donated before we started dating, and she is more than likely not having my first child? All right, folks, let's dig into this one. Another interesting partner. So this one I admit is bitch strange, and honestly, I never thought of the impact of my actions long ago when I was making a little bit of side cash. Long story short, I was in college about 15 years ago, and like every college student, I was low on cash. And I was flipping through the school paper and I saw an ad for donating some of my adult cells, reproductive cells. It said something along the lines of, no mental illness, no drugs, no alcohol, excellent physical shape, come and make $500 a month. It sounded like a scam, but I went to the address and it was legit doctor's office looking type of place. Well, everything looked legitimate, the paperwork and all. Turns out, because of my grades, healthy lifestyle, and being 6 feet tall, and actually so on, I actually got $650 a month for coming in for regular donations. This was huge for me. My rent in those days was around $450. I only did it for a year and never really told anyone about it. I just moved on with my life, no different than any other side gig. So boom, my wife has been trying for months to have a kid. Eventually, we ended up getting pregnant, and it was a pretty exciting time for both of us. Everything went bad and made all those old donations. Oh, everything went bad and made all those donation memories I really not a thought about come back in a flash at the baby shower when one of my wife's friends brought up a onesie that said that mom and dad's firstborn handled with care. That was quite the sentence,
Mm-hmm.
folks. I thought that it was cute, but then it made me think. Our baby probably isn't my firstborn. It ate at me for like a week, and then I told my wife about my donations in college and how I'm pretty sure she's not having my first child. Everything went wild from there. She was furious, especially since we tried for so long before she could get pregnant. She said that I lied to her, and I don't see it like that. I've dated women before her, and I never thought to start out by saying, "Hi, I'm Brandon, and I donated my adult reproductive cells 15 years ago." Or that it would be a big deal. She has been sleeping at her sister's house for a week now. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, OP is not only the jerk, but has the worst timing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the thing about donating is that children can be created from this, and in this day and age, with DNA tests so readily available, it's fairly likely that one of the children conceived from this donation is going to find OP at some point,
Mm-hmm.
is going to reach out. And so, not telling your partner that there may be kids coming into your life and disrupting your life in the next, however many years is a big a mission to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think that OP wasn't necessarily if this never really occurred to OP and they just kind of like didn't think about it, that it was just some job that they thought that they had done and then they never gave it a second thought later on in life. That's one thing, right? But why go out of your way to talk to your now pregnant wife and be like, "By the way, this isn't my first
Well,
child."
and that's the other thing too, is like this is the first child that he'll actually be having a hand
Mm-hmm.
raising. So I definitely think he needed to talk to his wife about the donations, and that needed to happen years ago. But if he just remembered it now, it still had to happen. But to frame it like, well, this isn't my first kid, actually. Dude, you haven't had a hand in raising any of those kids. Like, yeah, they may have your DNA, but they're not
Well, and
yours.
that's exactly it. It's like this isn't coming across to me as like this is actually those other babies aren't his children, right? Like, yeah, they share his DNA, and that's it. That's all that they share with this individual. They aren't being raised by them. They aren't really his babies, so to speak. Yeah, they share a lineage with him, but he didn't raise them. He didn't help grow them. He's not legally required or obligated to provide child support and any other support. So him making the statement really just kind of feels like a slap in the face more than anything to his wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, what do the comments have to say on this one?
So Army Soldiers Lady says, why did OP not say something at the beginning of their relationship or even bring it up now? And Mary says, OP, that was a weird way to phrase this news. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It sure was. It sure was about the weirdest way. Speaking of weird things, weird ways, our next letter is titled, "Am I the jerk for killing a spider at my girlfriend's house?" I'm a 19-year-old male, and I was at a 19-year-old female's girlfriend's, Carly's, flat last night. Well, Carly is one of those people who would never hurt a fly. She loves and respects animals, vegan, and is quite sensitive about them. She's especially sensitive to people killing bugs or spiders and has always made it very clear that any little animal or bug that she finds in our way into the house, that finds its way into our house, will not be harmed or killed in any way. Except she's scared of spiders. She got bit by one a couple years ago and has been apprehensive about them ever since. Well, yesterday, I was over at her house and she saw a spider on her bookshelf. She cringed and asked me to deal with it. It was super fast and I couldn't catch it with my hand as much as I tried. So I just killed it. Like I hit it with one of her books. I took it over. I looked it over and I looked over and she was shocked. She got really emotional and asked why I did such an aggressive thing, and I said it was only little. I told her that she needed to stop and that was only a spider. She kicked me out and texted me this morning saying that she's upset by my remorselessness towards a spider. And also how I know how much that sort of thing upsets her. I've just been ignoring her. I talked to my brother about it, who thinks that I'm being a jerk and killing living things in her house is against her rules. But I don't know. Alright, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, I think OP was a jerk. She had made it explicit that she does not want to see things get killed in her house. And also, taking one of her books and whacking a spider with it, like, that's not good for the book either. And, like, who wants to have a smushed spider on their book when, like, you love animals and here now your book has been used in this horrible act of violence.
Yeah. Hi, Amy. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. My view on this one is just purely kind of rules, right? I mean, I think that one, it doesn't hurt just to catch the spider and throw it outside, right? And they could have used a cup. They didn't have to use their hands, and they could have caught it some other more gentle way. But the girlfriend had this explicit rule. She said, "Do not kill things in my house." And what does OP do? They kill things in her house, and it's really just black and white in that respect, right?
Yeah, well, and like if it was just getting too tedious or annoying to catch, like he could have just been like, "Oh, the spider got away. What can we do?" You know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's fine to decline handling the spider. He is not obligated to do it.
Yeah.
Like, so if it was just annoying, tedious, or he didn't want to do it, like I'd say it's totally fine to just nope out of catching it and just get the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think smushing the spider is not cool.
Yeah, and I will turn the screws on this post a little bit. Suppose for a second that this hadn't been a spider and it had been something like a poisonous snake, right? And OP ended up killing the snake in self-defense. I would think that she would have a little bit less of a grounds at that point in time to be complaining about, OP killing something because this was an act of self-defense. Sure, it's not fair. Life's not fair sometimes, and I think that it's one of those situations where if you have to resort to something like that, it's kind of a last resort. But I don't think in this particular case the spider wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't dangerous. It was just more or less a nuisance, and OP kind of just got frustrated and smushed it, right?
Yeah, I'd be crying for the poor snake.
Well, I mean, I would be upset about having to kill a snake. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I would be very upset by it. I would be remorseful by it. But if I had to, I would, right? It would be a very last resort. It would be like, it's life or my life type of thing, right? But what does everyone else have to say? Speaking of morbid.
So let's see. Mary says, if you know the rules, you follow the rules. Army Soldier's Lady says, I'm more offended by using a book to kill the bug. Yes, I understand her rule, and he should have respected it. Amy Lynn says, you're the jerk. I hate spiders as much as the next person, but if you are at someone else's house, follow their rules. And rather than using a fly swatter, you disrespected your girlfriend's property.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary says, but when faced with a poisonous snake, you have better odds if you just run. Yeah, that's probably true.
That is probably true. That is probably very true.
Just to interject with a Brian story. So when Brian and I first started going out, one of my favorite memories, and one of the things that endeared him to me was there was a bee in your car, the Saab, and you didn't try to smush it. You just like let it out of your car, and I was just really wowed and impressed that you didn't kill the bee. You just let it go, and I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet."
Yeah, well, I don't really kill things unless it's like an absolute necessity, and it would have to be like a very, very extreme thing for that to like be my action. And speaking of extreme actions, our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Buying an Anti-Bark Device for the Neighbor's New Guard Dog? So, my neighbor is one of those cookie cutter neighborhoods, or neighborhood is one of those cookie cutter neighborhoods, where the houses were mass produced. The neighbors share a 6-foot cement wall, and each house is about 2 feet from that wall. Recently, my neighbor got 2 guard dogs, 2 big German Shepherd, and a little lap dog. The lap dog barks all the time and whines really loudly. So I went over with a box of dog items to see if a toy or a dog bed would soothe him since he's outside and could just not be coping with that. The neighbors did not accept the box and told me to mind my own business because the dog is supposed to bark due to them being guard dogs. Then they shut the door in my face. I would like to point out that if a guard dog is barking all the time, then it kind of negates the purpose
Right, how
of
are you going to
being
know
a
there's
guard
an
dog.
intruder if they're
Yeah.
just constantly barking?
Everything is a threat all the time.
Be on high alert.
It's a dog with an existential crisis at every moment. Courage, the cowardly dog. I thought about my options, and I could tell the HOA or buy an anti-bark device. I bought the device because the HOA would find them until they got rid of the dog due to the noise regulations listed in our terms. Now this neighborhood has dogs that do bark on the occasion, so dogs are allowed. Well, the neighborhood dogs are the cutest and the friendliest, but the wigglers you could ever see, so I don't want them to get rid of the dogs, But they're the cutest and friendliest little wigglers that you could ever see, and so I don't want them to get rid of the dogs. But the little one does not seem to be adjusting with as much as he whimpers throughout the day. So fast forward to the neighborhood's bangs. So fast forward and the neighbor. I guess I can't read today, folks. Now you know the torture of reading this every day. No, I'm not torture. It's really not. The multiple resets I have some days. So fast forward, and the neighbor bangs on my door demanding that I remove the device because he can see it in my yard from his second floor bedroom window. And I told him no, that it's my property and it's none of his business. He called me a jerk, but not as nicely, and said that I am making the dog feel uncomfortable. And I feel bad because I didn't think about making the other dogs in the neighborhood feel scared or uncomfortable. No other dogs or neighbors said anything. No, of course the dogs didn't say anything. And now I feel bad. So am I the jerk? Edit, the device doesn't harm the dogs. It just sends out a high-pitched noise that is activated when the dog barks. Edit 2, the neighbor works from way earlier in the morning and doesn't come home until way later in the night. Might have multiple jobs or is professional chef, I don't know. His wife is young and the children are young, so the dogs are meant to protect them from intruders, but the wife doesn't interact with the dogs. Not sure if she's super busy or just doesn't like them, which could be a reason to stay outside. They stay outside all the time, aside from feeding them and watering them. Edit 3, I went over with a box of chew bones, toys that included a wiggly ball, and a bed because they don't have a bed or even a doghouse. I thought the reason that the one was whimpering and barking was because it was uncomfortable and sleeping on the floor. I live in Vegas, if that helps, so right now the temperature is fair, but the dogs don't ever go inside, even if it rains, because the backyard has an overhang that provides shading and rain protection. And edit 4. Thank you all for your input. It seems to be pretty even with the you're the jerks and not the jerks and a few everyone's the jerk, which to be honest is confusing, but highlights the very question that I'm asking, am I the jerk in the first place? What I got from the you're the jerks is that I'm causing suffering to pets and maybe people around me with the device, which in all honesty was not my intention and purely done out of ignorance and sleep-deprived tunnel vision. And the not the jerks made a valid point of me deserving peace and quiet, sleep. Also, that they should not have dogs as the dogs are clearly whimpering for a reason. Almost everyone said that I should contact the HOA and animal control and get those dogs to safety. I am going to have to agree with both sides, so I turned off the device earlier and I plan to follow your advice. I don't know if the damage is already done and it's too late because the dogs have not barked so far, but if they do revert back, I will be recording it and I will be contacting the HOA and animal control. Thank you all. All right, folks, what do you think?
I mean, I think OP was well intentioned, but I don't know that they handled the situation the best. I'm not familiar with anti-barking devices. I hadn't really heard of them before recently, so I don't have a lot of knowledge about what they actually do. But personally, since OP did try to approach them and talk to them, I think talking to the HOA would have been the next step.
So, to actually just give you some background on what these barking devices are. So what happens is they send out a really high-pitched signal whenever the dog barks. So basically they are constantly listening, and if the dog barks, they just send out a high-pitched frequency. It's kind of like a dog whistle, right? And so dog whistles aren't harmful to dogs. They might cause them some distress to some level, but it's meant to basically interrupt the dog's barking so that they stop barking. As for whether OP is in the right or wrong on that, I don't know. I mean, I think that they were getting sleep deprived. I think that this was impacting their own health, and they didn't want to get their neighbors fined or kicked out of the neighborhood, right? Because HOAs, they can be overly restrictive, and in that respect, I think that they handled it in the kind of least escalatory way. Now, once the neighbors told them to turn it off, I think that they could have said, look, you have to do something about the dogs. Either they stop barking or I'm going to report you to the HOA, right? So I think the moment they told OP to turn it off, they should have turned it off, right? So that's kind of where I stand on this. I think that this is a little bit of a complicated situation, but I don't think OP was ill-intentioned.
Oh, certainly, I agree. Yeah, I don't think OP was ill-intentioned. And again, it doesn't even sound like OP was really aware of what the devices do. And so, yeah.
But what do the comments have to say?
So Amy Lynn says, I mean, I think OP is trying to be helpful, but I would have just told them to do something about the barking so the neighbors don't report them, as the dogs are so lovable, and you don't want to get them fined. And Mary says, my experience has been if you adapt an attitude of that's Sparky doing his thing again, it becomes background noise. That and headphones worked for me.
Some advice, some advice.
Yeah, it does not work for me. We had a very, very barky dog for a little while, and I have a lot of sensitivity to noises, so like I just cannot tune it out.
Yeah, well, also we tried to talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I, confronted them multiple times, but they acted like I was inconveniencing them by them waking us up in the middle of the night, and it's like, come
Yeah,
on.
it was like they went to the gym at like 5:30 in the morning, and the dog was barking on and off for like an hour until they got back. And so Brian went to try and talk to them, and they were like, "Well, what are we supposed to do? Not go to the gym?" And it's like, or find some way so your dog keep your dog entertained so it's not barking all the time you're gone.
Yeah, well, and there's an important note. Our neighborhood is a dog-free neighborhood, and they were able to have this pet because it's a emotional support pet, and I was trying to be as nice as possible. They've moved out since, so they're
Yes.
actually not here anymore because I think that well, our apartments, you can't even really have dogs, right?
They're so
Because
tiny.
yeah, we have very, very small apartments, and it's actually cruel, in my opinion, to have a dog in one of these apartments.
Especially one that big. Like,
Hmm.
it's just not a good size for, like, the dog had no space or anything,
Yeah,
so.
it's just not a good situation, and I sympathize with OP here. And sometimes people are gonna act like you're being rude, and even though you're trying to approach it as civilly as possible, and some people just need to grow up and be more mature, right? Speaking of being more mature and growing up, am I the jerk for taking my kids to go meet my husband's abusive father even after he prohibited me from doing so? I don't know if that actually fits, but it was a segue nonetheless.
Must segue.
Must segue.
It's like the world's worst transitional sentences.
Yes. Well, I was like, I'm almost right some of the time with the segues. I'm a 42-year-old female, and my husband is a 42-year-old male, Daryl, and we have 3 kids, an 18-year-old male, a 13-year-old female, and a 9-year-old female. We have been together since we were married at 15, and we've been married since we were 18. Oh, we've been together since 15 and married since we were 18. I have never really had any contact with his father. He has always been distant with him, and he's made sure to keep me away as well. So I don't know much about his father personally, other than a few things that he's brought up only 1 or 2 times. He has mentioned that he hates his father, and that he was an abusive jerk, and that he would abuse him and his sister every single day. His mother took her own life when he was 13, and he has been in therapy ever since. So his relationship with his father is practically non-existent. All he has for a real family is his younger sister. Well, my contact with his father has only been before we got married. Daryl has always tried to keep me as far away as possible from him. I only recently interacted with him when I first met his family and when he graduated high school. When we got married at 18, he cut all contact off with his father and prohibited me and our kids from ever contacting him or inviting him to anything. That included our weddings, kids' special days, and so on. They have never met their grandpa, and this has always bothered them. Well, they have all met my sister-in-law, a 40-year-old female, and they love her as family. They frequently ask her for her and are very close. She has been to every main event and family gathering. I'm not very close to her, but have maintained a good relationship. I asked her about the parents and how I know growing up with her. I asked her about her parents and how it was growing up, and she tried to evade the question and even started to get nervous. I think they mean evade. She refused to answer my question and changed the subject. Daryl never really told me much about it either, and has reacted the same way when our kids have asked him about the family. Maybe that should be your note to stop asking questions.
Yeah.
On Thanksgiving, we had a family dinner. My whole family attended. Of course, my sister-in-law attended. Everyone got wasted and had a good time. That was until my youngest asked for if her grandpa was going to be attending this year. My other kids jumped on the bandwagon and bombarded her with questions about him and why he was never there. She got overwhelmed and stormed out. My husband scolded them and went to make sure that his sister was okay. When we got home, he told me never to bring him up again and to erase that ever even thinking about him. Grandpa does not exist. This seems to have lit a fire under all of them because they seemed like it was a mystery, a hidden character who they were dying to meet. Since then, they have hounded me about it. Mom, I want to meet Grandpa. Mom, why isn't Grandpa around when yours is? Why don't you invite Grandpa over? All I could tell them was that Dad did not get along with Grandpa and was mean to him. It did not seem to shake the resolve to meet him. Well, I have brought up to my husband that the kids want to meet their grandpa. Maybe they should get to meet their grandpa at least once. They deserve it. He did not like the idea and told me never to bring this up again. He told me that he would never meet that man. He did not care about how much the kids wanted to meet him. He again prohibited me from ever contacting his father and let alone letting his kids meet them. My kids continued to hound me and beg me to visit the grandpa. I felt bad for them and thought that maybe just once they should meet him. They did deserve to visit him at least once. I convinced myself that it was okay to eventually agreed. I told them that this would be our little secret and not to tell their father. Their faces lit up, and throughout the week they would ask if I was taking them today or tomorrow. So I took them to see their grandpa this upcoming weekend. I told my husband that we would be going to the mall and that we would be back late. Well, when we got back home, my husband greeted us and had ordered takeout. His sister was there as well, already chowing down. My husband and I went to the kitchen to get something to drink while his sister talked to my kids. I overheard them ask how their day was and what they did. My youngest excitedly responded that we got to have ice cream and meet with Grandpa. My husband dropped his cup and it shattered on the floor. I told them that I could explain, but he did not give me the chance and told me not to say a word, that he will be going for a drive and to think about it and will be back. I pleaded for him to hear me out, but he left. His sister was angry as well and followed, but before leaving, she asked me why on earth I would take them to him. Now my kids are asking what happened, and I'm not sure what to say. So am I the jerk for taking the kids to meet my husband's abusive father? All right, folks, what do you think of this one?
Yes, OP, I think, is a major jerk here. That was not okay. Like, I don't know why you would want to take your kids to a known abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, I understand the husband wasn't very forthcoming, but that should be a sign that something really bad and traumatic probably happened between them.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone wants to relive their trauma and, like, share it with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think OP didn't do enough to explain to the kids what's going on here. Like, saying, oh, Grandpa was mean to Dad is different from saying Grandpa is a cruel and abusive person.
Yeah.
He hurts other people.
Yeah.
And we don't want you being around someone who hurts other people.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. One of the kids is 18.
Right. The 18-year-old can do whatever they want. They're an adult.
And if the 18-year-old wants to go and hunt down their grandfather and meet them and talk to them, that's their prerogative. They can do that. But OP I think that there should have been a family therapy a long time ago to kind of talk about this and explain it. And that the father should have also been more willing to talk about explain why they didn't want their children meeting the grandfather, right?
Right, and to be clear, that doesn't have to be like going into the details of his trauma. You know, you can talk to kids in very general terms about how this person has done some very bad things, and that's why we can't be around them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, though, the important thing about this one is that, you know, there are things that OP could have done, and she chose to do the one thing that they knew would upset their husband, and they wanted the kids to keep it secret. And anyone who has had kids knows that kids cannot keep secrets, right? I mean, you don't even have to have kids for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's hard to keep secrets, and so the more secretive you try to make something, the more likely it's going to come spilling out.
Yeah. But what do the folks have to say?
So Mary says OP should reread that title, and then Amy Lynn says, "Why would you subject your children to someone who is known as an abuser? You're
Mm-hmm.
the jerk. You have no right to determine the type of relationship your partner has with their side of the family, period. Your partner's dynamics with their family is their business, and as a partner, you need to be supportive. I would tell my kids Grandpa is a bad person and leave it at that." Mary says, "The kids get intrigued by a mystery, huh? Now there's a logical reason to introduce the kids to a monster they are related to. No problem there." And OP lied to the hubby. And then Amy Lynn says, "I know, right?" And Mary says, "Does OP even have to ask?" And Amy says, "LOL, some of these are basic common sense."
Yeah, I mean, I love those responses. I love those responses. All right, our next letter, speaking of bad decisions, bad choices and decisions, our next letter is titled, "My wife is cold and distant towards me since I helped an ex during a bad time."
I mean, that segue works perfectly.
Yes, it will this time. It will make sense, folks. So I'm a 35-year-old male, and I was in a long-term relationship with a woman, a 33-year-old female, between the ages when I was 20 to 30, until she left me for a job in another state. Later, she told me long-distance relationships didn't work, so we broke up, and I found out that she was engaged. I met my wife,
I'm assuming that's a typo.
yeah, I don't think their wife is a 3-year-old female here. They must mean 30-year-old female. I met my wife, a 30-year-old female. I'm going to say it right there. A year later, and honestly, I don't think I even knew what love was before I met her. Everything was different with her, and love was so easy and not an uphill battle all the time like it was in hindsight, and I realized that my former relationship, that it was like that. I'm not trying to bash on my ex or our relationship. We grew up together and we learned a lot, but sometimes you hate something that turns out to be good, and this was the ending for my relationship. I was very sad and devastated, but looking back, I'm happy that it happened, or I wouldn't know what true love or happiness is. At the same time, I met my wife. My ex moved back, and she said that she regretted ending things and that we loved each other. I wasn't in love with her anymore, and I turned her down. She is still a good friend of mine, and I like her as a friend. She is, however, my sister's best friend. My wife knows her, and she has never been threatened by her because we have always had a solid relationship. My ex-mom unfortunately passed away suddenly, and she has been inconsolable and broken since. And I cannot even imagine the pain. My sister is devastated too, and she has been by her side. I have too been supportive of her, and it felt very appropriate. My sister encouraged me to be there for her and support our friend. My wife didn't mind being in the beginning, but I felt as if she started to be uncomfortable that I went on walks and hikes with my ex. But it was doing a good job to keep her mind off of things, and I found my wife's coldness uncalled for. I never experienced her as a cold-hearted or callous person, but here we are. She just didn't like the mention of my ex, so I didn't mention her either. Well, then a week after the new year, my sister planned a week vacation for her and her husband, my ex and me. A week vacation, folks. And another couple that my sister and ex are friends with. My wife this time was very upset and said that she didn't want me to go. I wonder why. She asked me why she wasn't invited, and then if it was just an innocent hangout. My sister said that it was ridiculous because we've been friends since high school. But my wife said that my sister never really liked her. I thought that she was being unfair and ridiculous. However, she said that she didn't want me to be on that trip. After the trip, my wife has changed. She isn't rude or upset. She's just sad and doesn't engage with me. She doesn't start conversations. When I try to comfort her, she doesn't engage in arguments. When I try to comfort her, she doesn't engage, and she doesn't engage in arguments. I don't know what to do. She doesn't even think that something is changed. When I am going out, she doesn't even care. If I was taking a hike with my ex, she didn't get bothered. Also, when my sister had her birthday, my wife told me in the morning that she was feeling sick and didn't want to risk infecting other people, and she just sent a text to my sister and a present with me. Now, what's the last straw for me was that my ex is having her birthday party on Friday. Both me and my wife are invited. My wife just said sorry that she can't do it. I'm already booked for work, friends, and a 50-50 birthday. I asked her why I wasn't invited, and she said that I was, but that she was taking her nephew, so I didn't need to go with her, so I could go to the party instead. This was very out of character for my wife, who would have tried to make other solutions, like dropping by one party first, then the other, but she just didn't care. I asked her if she could come with me instead, since her work colleague isn't a close friend, but she just dismissed me and laughed mirthfully, calling me ridiculous. All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Opie done messed up here.
You think?
Like, I understand wanting to comfort someone when they're grieving, but you have to have appropriate boundaries. This is someone who is still actively pining after OP.
Mm-hmm.
And then his...
Well, as far as we're aware.
Right.
From the way OP describes
right.
it.
It sounds like she confessed that she felt like she made a mistake breaking up and she wanted to get back together. And so you have to be like, it would have been fine to send her a card or flowers or something like that, even give her a phone call or something and be like, I'm sorry for your loss. But that's about where it should have ended. It should not have become intimate one-on-one times, and it certainly should not have become a couple's vacation with your ex and not your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the wife has checked out because OP has made it very clear that she is not a priority.
Well, and that's the trouble here, is that this is one of the situations where what OP's wife made it very, very clear to him that she didn't want him going on this trip, and he violated that, and she wanted to be invited to this trip, and she wasn't invited. And in the end, I think that OP has really done a lot of damage to their relationship. Now, I don't know if things are completely broken. Things might still be salvageable, but I think they need to go into couples counseling. And I think that OP and she need to sit down and talk. They need to have a long conversation about respect in the relationship, about boundaries in the relationship, and, what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable.
Honestly, like, at this point in time, if I were her, like, I'd have serious trust issues. And unless he was willing to go no contact with the ex and with his sister, then I would, like, it would be a hard boundary for me.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear the sister is trying to manipulate the situation so that OP gets back with the ex. Like, she planned this entire couple's vacation to try and get them back together.
Well, and that's the way it kind of comes across, doesn't it? It comes across as a couple's vacation. It was 3 couples.
Right. I mean, me and my husband, this other couple, and you and your ex. Like, it's very clear what's happening here.
OP, just the optics of that look terrible. They absolutely look terrible. And if you just take a second to even just reflect on it, you can see how bad that looks.
Well, like, how would he have felt if his wife wanted to go on a couple's vacation with one of her exes? Like, I imagine he probably wouldn't be like, oh yeah, sure. You know each other since high school, so it's fine.
Yeah. But what does everyone else have to say?
So Amy says, you're the jerk just on the title alone. So X actively tried to get OP back in the beginning, and I think OP's ex is secretly working on getting OP to start an emotional affair, and sister is encouraging this. I'd be upset too.
Yeah.
Mary says, we've been friends since high school. Since when is that an argument against what could happen on a co-ed trip?
Yeah.
Army Soldiers Lady says, yes, you are. My husband's grandpa is a predator and our kids will never meet him. Okay, this is from the previous story. I told my husband that I will leave it up to him, and he has said no. OP didn't respect the husband. And then Mary says, sounds like the wife is beginning to explore cutting the cord options.
Yeah.
And Amy says, I think OP's wife is ready to end her marriage because from her POV, her husband is having an emotional affair, and OP is an idiot if he seriously doesn't see what's happening.
Oh, apparently my camera has gone off. Hi, folks. I don't know why my camera went off like that. Let's see if it comes back on here. That was weird. I don't know why that turned off.
Brian disappeared. There's no more Brian.
I am still here, folks. I promise. I may have disappeared into the shadows for now, but I have emerged from the darkness, and now we have another story titled, Am I the Jerk for Wanting to Postpone the Wedding Because My Fiancé Tested Me with a fake miscarriage? I don't even know if you need to read this one. Like, you don't... One, relationship tests never work, right? And 2... Why would you test someone with a fake miscarriage? Like, that's just absolutely absurd. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I've been with my fiancée, Vivian, a 28-year-old female, for 5 years, and we found out she was pregnant shortly after I proposed. We were both ecstatic about it, even though it wasn't planned. Vivian's parents were a bit upset that I got their daughter pregnant without being married to her, but having a wedding during pregnancy seemed to calm them down. They're Christians, but not evangelical types who shove religion down everyone's throat. She's currently 13 weeks pregnant, and 4 days ago, I have gotten off of work, so I immediately headed home to our apartment. I saw my best friend, Carly, a 29-year-old female, sitting on the couch looking upset, which is unlike her, so I asked if everything was okay and where Vivian was. Carly told me that she was in our main bathroom, so I headed over there and I noticed that Carly was following me, which I thought was a little bit strange, and I brushed it off. I knocked on the door and asked if I could come in, which Vivian said yes, so I opened the door and I saw my fiancée standing over the toilet in tears when she looked at me. I immediately asked her what was wrong, and Vivian sniffed and told me that she miscarried, gesturing at the toilet. I looked and the water was reddish and there was a lump in there that looked like it could be a fetus with a stray piece of bloody tissue covering it. So I averted my eyes after I saw it and then I started crying. I was genuinely sobbing, which I haven't done since Vivian revealed to me that she was pregnant. But those were tears of joy. I grabbed my fiancée and I hugged her tight while she was crying into her shoulder. Eventually, I looked up and I saw in the bathroom mirror that Carly was standing in the doorway with her phone like she was recording something or taking pictures. I let go of Vivian and I asked Carly what she was doing. Carly stammered that she was going, while looking for an excuse. Eventually, my fiancé fessed up and admitted that she didn't actually have a miscarriage and that it was a test to see how I would react if she actually lost our baby. I essentially short-circuited, unable to comprehend how Vivian and Carly, despite us not being close, could do something so outlandishly cruel to me. I snapped out of it when Vivian attempted to touch my cheek and pushed her hand away. I didn't want to be near her or have her touch me at that moment. Carly and Vivian tried to stop me from leaving the bathroom, but I pushed past them so that I could go to our bedroom. I haphazardly packed some clothes into an old bag and I headed straight for the door after grabbing my keys. Vivian caught up with me at the door and tried to plead with me to stay and talk about what had happened, but I told her that I needed time away from her to process what had just happened. She didn't push for me to stay after that, but seemed disappointed in it. I ended up staying with a buddy of mine, Josh, a 26-year-old male, who told me that I could stay as long as I wanted to once I told him what had happened and commented how messed up that was for Vivian to do to me. I'll admit that I was being childish and dodged Vivian's texts and calls, except to let her know that I was safe over the next couple of days. Once I felt stable enough, I invited Vivian to talk. I won't go into everything that we talked about, but the reason why Vivian decided to test me was that she was afraid that I didn't actually want the baby and was caring for them because I had an order not to be seen as a deadbeat. I said that I understood her fears, but I legitimately wanted to be the father of our baby. I ultimately decided to stay with Vivian, but on the condition that we postpone the wedding until after the baby was born and did some couples counseling. Vivian said okay, and left my friend's apartment. I honestly assumed that was that, and I was going to go home after that. Boy, was I wrong. An hour after Vivian left, I got a message from Carly harassing me about forcing Vivian to have a baby out of wedlock, since I know that's not what her parents wanted, while insulting me. It got so intense that I eventually blocked her. Honestly, I just want some unbiased outside perspective on this. Am I the jerk for giving this condition to my fiancé?
No.
All right, folks.
I do not think Opie's the jerk here. I mean, I think this is very reasonable. I don't think you should be getting married if there are trust issues in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like, if you are at a point where you have to be faking serious life events to determine whether your partner loves you, is committed to you, and your future child, like, that is not a good place to be at.
Yeah.
That is not a healthy relationship. I think that postponing the wedding is a really good idea, and I think couples counseling is a really good idea if they want to continue with this relationship.
Yeah, I mean, OP wouldn't be wrong for breaking up with her.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, OP is even a saint here in this respect, right? Like, this woman, she went out of her way to basically emotionally manipulate OP and test him, and was like, why are you leaving me?
Well, and we still have no idea what Carly was doing with the phone. Was she filming a TikTok that we don't know about?
She was filming a TikTok. Everyone's filming TikToks all the time. I'm assuming it's a TikTok, and I'm going to be very, very much a curmudgeon in this respect.
Like, so, I mean, OP is definitely not in the wrong here. OP has handled this whole situation like a champ.
Yeah.
And again, like, whatever he wants to do from here on out, continue the relationship or not, like, I definitely think that if he does continue, counseling is a must. And if he doesn't want to continue, that's totally understandable.
Yeah, well, also, how much... I mean, I don't know if this is Carly's fault or not, but maybe Carly is a bad influence, especially the way she's acting and talking to OP in general, right? And maybe Carly needs to be not involved with the wife. I mean, especially if she's going to sit there and insult OP for being as mature and collected as he was, right?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't seem like a good friend, and the fact that she was recording this and went along with this is just not good at all.
Well, that's the thing. Even if she was just going along with it and is only doing what Vivian wants, like, that doesn't make her... That would just makes both of them kind of not good people,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. But what does everyone else have to say on this one?
So Mary says, yes, you should postpone. Amy says, why put that negative karma into the universe, lol, and people have postponed weddings for far less than this. Testing your partner shows a lack of trust in a relationship.
Yeah.
Mary says, oh my god, why is that sitting down and discussing these problems is never the first impulse in these stories. Army Soldiers Lady says, why would you fake an issue for proof of commitment? I think OP is amazing for sticking around.
Yeah.
Amy says, it was a cruel stunt Vivian pulled, so much so this belongs in the Reddit Am I the Devil? I think OP is even willing to work on this, which is more than she deserves. And ooh, good point on Carly. And Marcia says, so was she ever pregnant? If not, I'd move on. It sounds like she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Is still currently pregnant. And Mary says, no relationship has ever benefited by tests.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You don't do standardized tests every day with your partner?
Yeah, I mean, everyone should sit down with us one standardized test every single day with their partner, and that will help all relationships.
Yeah, you can join me in like doing my daily calculus question, Brian.
That's not a standardized test,
That's not a
Amber.
standardized
I'm
test.
sorry. We need an A, B, C, and D. All right, we've got enough time for a couple of stories here. Why don't we jump into tea time real quick and Amber's joke time,
All right.
and then we'll go on to our next couple of stories. How's that sound? All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here, and Amber, she has allegedly a joke. This better be good, Amber. If it isn't, then we're going to have bring up the multiple choice questions.
Oh. Well then, I'll have to dust off my brain. Why did the girl love her ceiling?
The girl loved her ceiling because it was full of sealing wax, and that's, everyone loves sealing wax.
Because it had her #1 fan.
Oh, I suppose so. That makes sense.
There's a picture to go with it.
There's a picture to go with it. Oh, look, folks, it's a picture to go with it. There you go.
#1 fan.
So, Mary has a black tea. She's guessing Earl Grey. Hydrating with water for Amy. And let's see. And let's see what also is the how springy everyone is today. 25% of you are very springy. Well, I'm glad you're very springy. Here in Maine, we are very not much springy.
Well, I thought it was how springy are you feeling?
Well, it is. How springy are you? You can interpret that question however you'd like. Moderately springy, 38%. Some of you are moderately springy out there. And then we have somewhat springy, 38%. So I'm going to say that I'm moderately springy.
Yeah, that's what I went with.
Yeah. And I, oh, you got some snow. That's pretty cool. And I have some licorice spice.
We were supposed to get snow today, but I think it was just rain, which is I much prefer.
Yeah, well, it did snow a tiny bit, but it didn't accumulate at all. Which is odd for February. Very peculiar.
I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's supposed to hit 50 next week, and I'm like, yes, please.
All right, we'll go on. We'll have a couple of fun stories here. Not picking up my phone on vacation. What was that one? Where we wanted to do the creepy red flag one for the last one. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. Oh, this one.
Yeah, we
This
can
one
do
is
girlfriend
good.
versus fish.
For girlfriend versus fish. Let's do this. That one was heavy. It was really heavy, right? Uh
Our last one is lighter, so this one is kind of weird and creepy a little bit, but it's still interesting. But
oh yeah, maybe this one is a little too weird and creepy. We'll read it anyways. But it's very weird and actually more creepy than I was thinking. I forgot about one pivotal aspect of it. Uh, so our next letter is titled "Girlfriend versus Fish." My boyfriend, a 19-year-old, has a hobby of breeding and raising fish. He's got a passion for it, and that's great. Everyone has unique things that they're interested in. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I want to preface this by saying that I'm not one of those girlfriends who asks ridiculous questions that are meant to pick fights. He brings up these topics at random. We were at dinner today with friends, and the topic of missing our pets came up. We are university students. Many of us said that we missed our dogs or cats or whatever. My boyfriend said that he missed his fish. That was all in good fun, and we just think that was a little bit silly, you know? Fish aren't normally something that you think of emotionally being bonding with for pets. He turns to me and verbatim says, without warning or prompt, says, I would choose my fish over you. My friend then questioned him, stuff like, how much do you value your fish over blank? He said that he values his fish over me, over his parents, over any human being. He then was asked about my cat and said that he doesn't even like cats, therefore doesn't even value mine. He then told me that if we were ever to move in together and he brought his fish to my place and I brought my cat, and if my cat ever ate or hurt his fish, which she wouldn't, she's fat and lazy, he would skin my cat. He then defended this by saying that he's known his fish for longer and just doesn't like cats. That is weird, folks.
mm-hmm.
Just plain weird. Now, I'm not trying to disvalue his love for fish. People love their plants and inanimate objects that don't really matter. That doesn't really matter. What I'm concerned about is the value that of the fish that he's putting over other creatures here. I don't want to give off a holier than thou vibe because there's absolutely something that some humans who would give up to save a cat, for instance. But I wouldn't give up any person that I would know over my cat, much less my own parents or boyfriend. I know each person has their quirks, and he has many. My just wondering if this is just a thing to laugh off or one of those early red flags that I shouldn't ignore. What do you folks think? A red flag?
Yeah, I think that this is a red flag. I mean, I understand loving your pets, but to turn to someone unprompted and be like, yeah, I would choose my fish over you, over everyone, like, and then like threatening to murder their pet, like, this just doesn't sound compatible. I would be worried about moving in with him, period, because of how cold and indifferent he is towards OP's cat. That does not seem like a good thing, so.
I'm just going to say this, folks. My eyes are now permanently as wide as they can possibly go because of this story. We are on a very, very creepy level. The guy has literally threatened your cat.
Yeah.
If he values his fish over other human life or other animal life, if something were to accidentally happen to his fish, then, and it was your responsibility, what is he going to do? That is the question that I have. Is he going to skin you? I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Well, just run. Like, this relationship is not worth salvaging.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of red flags right now, and they are in the water, and OP should run away very, very quickly, or back away very slowly. I see that Mary has suggested that.
Yeah.
Like, back away, just get out of this relationship. Be like, why don't we just leave you and your fish alone here, What do the comments have to say?
So Amy says, this is weird, especially since fish don't live as long as people. OMG, this guy would actually skin a cat. It's fine to love fish, but the fact that he's willing to do animal cruelty over his fish, red flag.
Yeah.
Mary says, "What do you want to bet the fish is scared to death of this guy?" Marcia says, "Big red flag. I'd move and not give him my address. Tell him to go to therapy and break up." And Amy says, "This guy needs to seriously sort out his priorities."
So, folks, that one was ultra creepy, and this one, despite the title, is not as creepy as it's going to sound. This is a good, wholesome one to leave off on for the most part.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 people in the story are wholesome.
Our next letter is titled, I'm a 23-year-old female and my boyfriend, a 25-year-old male, thinks that my dad's, a 29-year-old male's, gifts are creepy. A red flag? Every year for Valentine's Day, my dad gives and sends me, a 23-year-old female, flowers and a box of chocolate. That's it, folks. That's the whole creepy gift. Very, very creepy. Oh my goodness. Run. He has done this every year since I've been old enough to remember. He has always given them to me when I was little and when I went to college and beyond, and he's had them delivered to me. It's just a tradition for us. I think that it's sweet. I grew up in a really tight-knit, close family. I started dating my boyfriend Mark, a 25-year-old male, a little over a year ago. Last Valentine's Day, I got the usual delivery from my dad. Mark saw it and was like, "Oh, your dad sent you those? Oh, okay." And that was it. Well, fast forward this year. Last night, Mark and I were discussing our Valentine's Day plans for this year, like what restaurant that we should go to. And he made a passing comment about how he was hoping that I don't get any creepy gifts in the mail this year. I was confused and I asked him what he meant, and he said, "You know, how you got stuff from your dad last year. It's creepy for a dad to be sending those things to his adult daughter on Valentine's Day." I was taken aback because it's not like my dad sent me lingerie or something. It was just flowers and some chocolate. I tried explaining to Mark that this is a tradition that I've always shared with my dad, and he stands firm that it was creepy and weird. And said that he asked his friends and they thought it was weird too. Well, I tried to let it go, but it's been bothering me. One, I have never heard these kinds of negative comments from Mark before, and I'm not sure whether it's a red flag. I have never been in a serious relationship before, and I'm still figuring it all out. Two, when my dad's delivery comes this month, I don't want Mark to feel uncomfortable. Three, is it actually creepy for my dad to be sending me this stuff? I have never found it so, but would like to hear others' perspectives on the matter. All right, folks, what do you think? Super creepy? Is it as creepy as the last story?
The only person being creepy here is Mark. I think what OP's dad does is really sweet, and I honestly wish we would make Valentine's Day more like less about romantic love and more about like familial love and friendship and whatnot. Like I think, sending someone you love flowers and chocolate is a really nice, sweet thing to do. I remember as a kid, my dad used to get us kids Valentine's gifts as well as my mom, and it was, very treasured memories. So, like, I think it's sweet, and I think OP, yeah, the red flag is with Mark, not with your dad.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more wholesome and nice. Like, I think OP's right. If he was sending OP lingerie...
Yeah.
That would be one thing. Yeah, that would be creepy. That would be way over the line. We're talking about flowers and chocolates, which are pretty, benign gifts here, right?
How many people send their parents or their children flowers or chocolates like at other times? Like, it's such a common gift to give. The fact that it's Valentine's Day doesn't suddenly make it creepy.
No, it's not creepy. It's just a matter of the dad showing appreciation and affection. And it shouldn't be come across as creepy too. I mean, I think that it's one of those things where also think about OP. How will Mark act as a father, right? If you plan on having kids, is he going to think that it's creepy to show affection to his children?
Well, and that is something that actually really frustrates me, is the way any time a type of platonic interaction is romanticized or creepified by society, because men can't like show emotions or treat women well unless they want to bed them. It's such a unfortunate take because it's not even true.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so I think you raised a really valid point about like how would he be as a parent? Would he be like push the kids to like, no, like we can't do anything, like no hugs, no affection, no nothing, because that's creepy?
Yeah. And kids do need affection from their parents, both parents, and that's an important thing. And I can understand if Mark wasn't in a household where it was common for stuff, affection to be shown. But that doesn't mean that he needs to go ahead and, poo-poo this away and then also be like, your dad's a creep. I think that's really, really extreme. And I
and
think
very
that's
rude.
uncalled for, right? But what does everyone else have to say?
So Amy says, OMG, this reminds me of my dad. Valentine's Day was my parents' anniversary, but my sister and I never felt left out when we didn't have boyfriends because he always got us C's candies and tickets to Disney on Ice shows, one of my favorite memories of him. Not creepy and find a new boyfriend. Mary says, my hubby and his bro would constantly buy flowers, chocolates, and trinkets for their older sister all the time. They did it to set the bar high for the boyfriends in her life.
That's good. That's good.
And Army Soldier, this lady says, my dad would do that for me even though I'm married and a mom. Mark is just jealous.
He is. He does come across as very, very jealous. And speaking of being jealous, we can all be jealous of the next live stream because I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. That was a terrible segue. I know it. But I'll get better at them. I promise. I won't get better at them. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. Guess who was responsible and actually looked up the next live stream date and entered it in already? Look at that.
Yeah, we don't have to travel back in time this time.
Yes, we don't have to travel back in time. March 29th will be the next live stream, and I thank you for joining us today. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too. Yeah, these were our leftover stories, as always. Like, we kind of pick them up throughout the month, and then we're like, because, like, sometimes what we'll do is we'll be like, well, here's a really good story, and then these ones, they're good stories, but they don't always, like, we kind of try to pick up the best story of the day. So I like being able to reflect on some of these other stories that get missed by. So, yeah, thanks, Army Soldier Lady. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Marsha. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
It's been fun.
Oh, well, that's really nice, Army Soldier Lady. I appreciate you coming by and watching the live stream, and I'm glad that these make your day. They're always fun. I enjoy them. I enjoy reading. Sometimes my tongue doesn't enjoy reading.
Or your brain.
Or my brain. Have a great weekend, folks. I hope you all have a awesome day. And Marsha says he's jealous of the dad. His comments are not right. What an awesome dad. I miss my dad. Dads love their little girls and show men how to treat their partner. I agree on that. And that is good moral advice and a way to live. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next month or Monday or something like that.
Bye.
Yeah, read Amber's story in Fear Street.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was going to mention this. So, Reader Beware is actually, like, #1 on Amazon in horror anthologies. So, like, I'm, like, pretending like I'm a little celebrity here. Like, why, yes, I am in that #1 best-selling horror anthology. Like, it's such a niche category, but I'm still like, haha, I'm #1. Or part of a collection that's #1. Not just me. There's a lot of other talented people, too.
Yeah. But it's a great book so far. But thanks, everyone, and we'll see you all next month, or Monday, or tomorrow. Not Monday, but tomorrow, right?